On this episode of The Right Stuff, we're going to be encouraging you, the disheartened writer, to let you know that writing truly is worth the effort. Stay tuned. You are listening to the best, the only place to be on Tuesday nights. That's right, you're listening to The Right Stuff, and you're at the right place at the right time. From England to Canada, from Detroit to the Poconos, we are showcasing Christian authors worldwide, giving you tips, tools, techniques, and resources for you, the writer, to hone and perfect your craft. Tune in every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, right here on WPJC 104.5. And your host, Parker J. Cole. Hi, and welcome to the show. I'm so glad you are able to join me for this edition of The Right Stuff. Let me tell you what's so significant about this show on a personal basis for me. What's so significant is that this is the last show of the that I'm doing right now before next week. And next week is my 3rd year anniversary of doing The Right Stuff. And it begins the first year of me owning my own online media broadcasting company, WPJC 104.5, which is PJC Media. So this show is very significant for me. I'm just really blessed the Lord allowed this to happen, that I can be here at this time in this place to bring you great authors, great stories, tips, tools, techniques, and resources from authors all over the world. And that's so significant for me. So I want to thank you all for your support of The Right Stuff as we go into its 3rd year. And it's just so exciting to see where the Lord has taken me and where I've been going and where he's going to take me further. And that's why today's show is called Writing is Worth the Effort, because I got to thinking about some of my other author friends who may be going through a tough time. And they think, what's the point of me writing? Why is this important to me? Why should this even be important when nothing seems to come from it? But we want to encourage you on this episode of The Right Stuff that writing is truly worth the effort. Even when you're down, even when it feels like you can't think, even when it feels as if the story ideas won't come to fruition, writing is worth the effort. And with me to talk about that is my guest co-host and contributor for this evening, George McVeigh. We'll be talking to him in just a few moments. If you want to weigh in on our topic, you certainly can by calling in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air. We can chit-chat, answer your questions, and you can give some encouragement to our authors out there who may be disheartened about their writing careers because they don't think it's worth the effort. But go ahead and call in again at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air. Or you can hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, #RightStuff with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on the Right Stuff radio show. We'll be right back.
Engaging the culture's imagination through speculative fiction, the Untold Podcast produces audio fiction from a Christian worldview. Find us over at untoldpodcast.com, where we partner with authors to tell science fiction, fantasy, supernatural, and horror stories. Find links at untoldpodcast.com to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, and a variety of other platforms. Each month we produce high-quality audio fiction that's free to download and free to listen. Our submissions are open, and we're always looking to add another great story to over 24 hours of narrative entertainment. Find all of our audio fiction over at www.untoldpodcast.com.
You are a dreamer and creator. You are a builder and destroyer of worlds. You are a starship pilot, a dragon rider, a galactic marine, at home in the company of elves. And you get a lot of strange looks from the other authors at that Christian Writers Conference. You are a Christian speculative fiction author, and we say, welcome home. Realm Makers 2016, the only conference for Christian fantasy and science fiction authors, featuring classes and sessions with world-class authors and industry professionals like author Tosca Lee, agent and publisher Steve Lobby, and many more, with keynotes by 4-time Christie Award-winning author Thomas Locke. Realm Makers 2016, July 28th through 30th at Villanova University, Pennsylvania. Register now at realmmakers.com. Use the promo code RADIO for a special discount.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. Again, we are talking about writing is worth the effort with my guest co-host and contributor today, George McVeigh. Before we go into our show, I really want you to know that this is a topic I really and truly understand because I am a fellow writer along with the rest of you. And no matter what you write, be it Christian or secular, sometimes you get down and sometimes you feel as if your writing is not worth it. But if you have this gift, obviously God gave you that gift for a reason. And you have to remember that as you go through different things in life, as maybe life circumstances affect your writing ability, or maybe you're just too scared to begin that writing project because you're afraid of rejection, you're afraid of criticism, you're afraid of any number of things that may stop you from writing. I need to let you know here that writing is truly worth the effort. We can all name the big-time writers like of course, we got Rowling, Stephen King, Decker, Tosca Lee, Kimberly Roby. I mean, we got so many authors we can name that made it to the big time. But you know what? There are thousands of us who have not seen the big spotlight, and they work and toil in the privacy of their homes on the job with a dozen different responsibilities. And perhaps they're juggling different things just like I am, working another job, stressful job, and then trying to write, do my shows, church work, stuff like that. And you're wondering whether or not this writing is really worth the effort. So we're going to be talking about that today with my guest co-host and contributor, George McVeigh. George, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you, Parker?
I'm doing good, George. You know, as always, thanks for coming on the show. I always love it when you're on here because you always give us such great advice and just great insight into our topics. I'm really glad that you're here. Plus, being a pastor and a writer and a reader, you really understand both sides of this whole issue about writing being worth the effort. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
You know, pastors, go ahead and tell us who you are in your own words.
Well, I'm a semi-retired pastor. Most of my ministry now is done online. I'm also a writer of both Christian fiction and nonfiction, and have done that for the last 5 years. Have one book that I'm extremely happy about, and though most of you don't know my name, my book has sold over 1 million copies in the last 5 years, and it's called The Complete Armor of God. And I just feel so blessed to be part of the Christian Indie Authors Network as well. I'm their official chaplain or pastor or whatever they want to call me today, and I do a lot of what we're going to be doing on this show, which is helping to encourage other starting writers and even writers who are further along the path than me that are struggling.
And, you know, I like how you said, like, you know, you have 1 million copies of one of your books sold right now and it continues to sell. And so another writer can be listening to you right now and saying, you know what, George, you may have 1 million copies of your one book sold, but I can't even get to the first topic. And I can't even get to the first word. And so I want to read a question we got from Leslie in Denver, Colorado. Leslie, thank you so much for your question. Leslie said, will this show, she was referring to this show, will it help force me out of my writer's block I've suffered for so long? And Leslie, thank you so much for that question because I think she hits a very important part of the writing process, the writing experience is when you have writer's block. So go ahead, George, let's address Leslie's question first and foremost.
Sure. And Leslie, I want to say first off to you that no, this show will not force you out of your writer's block. Nothing can do that but you. And that's the truth of the matter. But we are going to encourage you to work through that block. Listen, every writer, I haven't met one yet, who does not have this happen. You sit down, you're ready, you've got all of the things that you think you need to write, and you grab the pen and put it to page, or you grab the keyboard and open up that empty Word document, and nothing. And you just sit there, and you get frustrated. And before you know it, let's be honest, you're on Facebook, you're online, you're playing video games, you're watching television, you're doing anything but sitting there looking at that blank screen. And then the end of the day comes, the end of the time that you had to write, and you feel worthless. But that's the lie. The lie is that because I didn't get something on the page today, I'm worthless. There are ways around this block. There are ways that you have to figure out what works for you. Let me tell you what works for me. I just write. And by that I mean I open a completely different page from the story that I'm wanting to work on, and I just write whatever comes to mind. Even if it is, I don't have anything to write today. I can't think of a single thing. And I just write, and through the process of writing, a lot of times my mind clicks back to the story I wanted to work on, and I'm ready to go. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes what you need to do is literally walk away for a day. There's nothing that says, except our desire to do this thing God has put in us, there's nothing that says we have to put words on the page every single day. There's nothing that says, I have a lot of writer friends who tell me they're in a block, and then when I ask them, what did you write today? And they'll say, 500 words. Because they are goal-oriented, and they had the daily goal that they wanted to meet of 1,500 or 2,000 or whatever. And, 10 words on a page is 10 words on a page. It's 10 more words than you had the day before. And we have to look at it like that. We also have to do things to make us want to write. By that I mean sometimes you just need to walk away from writing and maybe read something, or go for a walk, or do something that would inspire you. And in doing that, you give that creative license a chance to work again, and those juices to be rekindled, because just like anything else, creativity can dry up. I mean,
it can definitely happen. It can definitely happen sometimes, because when you're writing,
if you're sitting there going, well, that's never happened to me, then let me say this: there will come the day when it will.
Yes, exactly. I think a lot of potential authors deal with that. It's that you're sitting there, you're thinking, like, sometimes I think because you're trying to force it out, or you're trying to eke it out, sometimes it can work. But like you said, I really like your advice to Leslie. You just write. You may not even work on the story that you were working on, or if you're not writing fiction, nonfiction, you may not work on a project you're working on. You write something else. And then what tends to happen is that as you just write something else, it could be a poem, journal entry, it could be a diary entry, it can be one that you saw, whatever that is. Usually if you work on something else, then what happens, those creative juices start to flow. Wouldn't you say that's what happens, Pastor?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you another key that a lot of writers don't even think about, and that is, especially those people that are Christian writers, pray.
Mm-hmm.
God gave you the gift. If you can't get past a block, then pray. Pray for God to ignite that creative spark in you again. Pray for Him to put words in your fingers or on your page, and then expect that to happen and do it. I mean, again, you have to play around with what will work, but you can always find something. I mean, and literally, it may be take the day off.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that happen too, where I have written, and I get up the next day and I sit down to write, and I read over everything I wrote the day before, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is going to be a great day, and I sit down and I open up today's page, and nothing.
Yeah.
And I try writing something else, and still nothing. And before I get frustrated and throw in the towel, I'll just be like, okay, today is an off day. Today is a day to read. Today's a day to take a walk. Today's a day to sleep. Today's a day to do anything.
Something else, yeah.
That's right.
And you need that break. Throughout the broadcast, George, we're going to be sharing some quotes I got from writer friends, both secular and Christian, who write different stuff. And so I got a quote from B. Garen Sanford. He's the author of Welcome to Town, Book 1 of the Town Chronicles. And for those who are interested, it's free till tomorrow if you want to get it. That's called Welcome to Town by B. Garen Sanford. He says this: writing is the safety valve of the soul. I didn't become a writer when I just wanted to write. I became a writer when I needed to write. During the darkest period of my life, writing saved me, and now it sustains me. And thank you, B. Garen Sanford, for that quote. And then Mary Toomey, author of the Underland series, says, writing is cheaper than therapy. Mary, thank you so much for that comment. And it kind of leads to that whole thought about getting past that writer's block, because Writer's block can be this massive rock in your brain, and you are trying to move this rock. You're trying to get out the way, and sometimes some writers, they can't even chip at it because they go blank. Do you think that when it's writer's block, you said go ahead and write something else, maybe walk away from it for a day. Another suggestion I would give, George, you can expand on this if you want. Another thing I would do, and you mentioned it, was read a book. Read a book that generally interests you. If it's nonfiction, read a nonfiction book in a topic that you're interested in. If it's a fictional book, read a book about a genre, or even a genre that you're not interested in, or that you don't even write in. Because sometimes this reading opens the valves, because as a writer's words come to mind, and they go, okay, wait a minute. If I was going to, let's say, a vampire, which is hot for a while, a vampire romance, something. And I don't like the new vampire romances of today. So anyway, oh gosh, don't even get me started on Twilight. But anyway, so let's say you like vampires. So you start reading a vampire romance or a vampire book or something, and you like it. Or for our Christian brothers and sisters who write Christian vampire stories, you write something about a vampire getting saved or something like that. And then what happens, that writer's block suddenly starts to get smaller, because now these new words are coming to mind. Now you're writing, now you can say, okay, I would do this. Maybe I could have my protagonist be like this particular character here. What would you say to that, George?
Well, not only that, but this is what I've experienced when I stop and read. Even if I read in a genre that's not what I'm writing, which is usually what I try to do, because I don't want to ever be accused of plagiarism. So if I'm having a writer's block and I'm trying to write one of my Westerns, then I'm going to go read something sci-fi. But what happens is that writer brain kicks in. By that I mean I'm reading these guys, this other writer's words, and my brain starts thinking, oh, I would have done this differently if it was me. And that sparks that creative juice in me, that then I can lay that down and walk back to my manuscript and start again. And sometimes, and I am notorious for doing this, people that know me know, I mean, just right now, I have 6 works in progress, 6 different books that I'm writing on, because if I can't go past on this one today, maybe something will spark on this other one.
Right.
If I don't know how to get my character where I need him to be on this story, then maybe today is a day that I work on one of my nonfiction books, or maybe today is a day that instead of working on a Western, I work on my speculative fiction book. And that's kind of a way around this writer's block. Sometimes it's not that you have writer's block, it's that you have block on this particular manuscript.
Yeah. I think that's a worthy point to mention. I was also going to suggest, too, for our listeners out there, what I tend to do is this. I get into character when I am writing in general. Generally, I'm always in character. When I'm writing a story, I become either protagonist or the villain, and I usually do this in a private space at my house, so I start screaming at the mirror, but I'm not looking at myself. I'm actually seeing my character in front of me, and I start dialoguing with that character. I do this, I've been doing this since I was a kid. My twin sister was like, you've been doing this since we were kids. I was like, yes, I get into mode. I get into the character. If I'm going to be the villain and I look in the mirror and I'm talking to my villain, or I'm a villain talking to myself, or I have a conversation with myself. I do that because I want to get into character. And some people, and especially if you're by yourself, no one's around, no one cares. No one's around, no one cares what you're doing. So you can holler and scream, throw stuff on the floor if you're acting out like a violent scene or something. You can do that too, because it also gets the juices flowing. Or if you're writing nonfiction, what you can do is have a conversation with what you're talking about. So if you want to imagine yourself in front of a podium with people, you imagine yourself in front of a podium and you're giving this topic out on this nonfiction topic. Imagine you're in a church, or imagine you're in a school or some podium. Put yourself in that position to imagine yourself that you're going to give this book that you're trying to write an audience, and you're going to be talking to them. Again, you're by yourself, no one's around. Go ahead and do it. You'll be surprised how much the ideas start to flow when you get into character or get into that presenter mode. You'll be surprised how many ideas flow.
Yeah, I end up writing more often when I'm telling somebody about what I'm writing, and have ideas that I actually have to jot down while I'm talking to them, or if it's an online conversation. I have a lot of online conversations with other writers where we're talking about our current whips, and I'll start coming up with ideas that I'm typing while I'm talking to them, and, of course, then I go and save these private messages so that I have them as reference when I get back into my manuscript. And those are always great for when that writer's block happens. But, and we've talked a lot about writer's block, but that is not the only thing that discourages writers. One of the things that I hear the most about that discourages writers is negative comments.
Well, let me stop you right there, George. Let me stop you right there because we're going to take a quick break really quickly. So let me stop you right there. But we do need definitely go into that because that is also a problem when it comes to writers is getting those negative comments. And, maybe we should share a couple of our own. George, when we go back from the break. Yeah, let's share a couple of our own negative reviews so people can know, hey, it exists, and don't let that stop you from making the effort to write. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. If you want to weigh in on our topic, you can. Simply call in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air. Or hit me on Twitter, Parker J. Cole, #PJC, Right Stuff, with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Authors, are you looking for a new way to get your book in the hands of new audience of targeted buyers? Then a virtual book tour is for you. Right now, virtual book tours is an excellent opportunity for you to introduce your book and who you are as an author. Launching your book is very important. A virtual book tour will connect you with readers. We at WNL, we specialize in book tours, book blasts, radio tours, cover reveals, and Facebook chat. Promoting and marketing your book is what we do. Online publicity, the exposure and the publicity is what you need. Let us help you reach new readers and a new audience. We take care of everything so you don't have to. We set up the tour for you. We connect you with bloggers to advertise your book by way of interviews, guest posts, and reviews. If you are an author of a newly published book, have an upcoming release, or just want to give a previously published book new life, a virtual book tour is your answer. Check our tours out at www.wnlbooktours.com. Visit me on Facebook. I am the owner, Paulette Harper.
Have you read the latest issue of SORMAG Digital, the award-winning literary magazine for multicultural readers and writers? SORMAG Digital is available quarterly and showcases interviews with the best authors in multicultural literature. SORMAG Digital features craft and business articles for those interested in writing. If you're looking for a good book, check out our book reviews on what's hot in multicultural literature. For writers looking for new readers to get in front of, SORMAG Digital is the perfect place to introduce your book. We offer advertising spaces that fit your promotional budget. Get your free subscription on SORMAG.com or order a print issue on MagCloud.com. If you would like more information about SORMAG Digital, check us out on SORMAG.com or contact us at SORMAG@yahoo.com. SORMAG Digital is the magazine for multicultural readers and writers.
Question: if you write a book, everybody will rush out to buy it. Obvious answer: no. If you were a celebrity or if you had a huge marketing budget, then maybe you can get a lot of exposure for your book. Another solution would be to check out joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com is a promotion and marketing service with access to over 1/3 of a million followers on Twitter. joeytweets.com has 3 packages available to fit any budget. That's joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com. Get some serious exposure for your books.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff on WPJC 104.5. We are talking about writing is worth effort. And before we went to break, we were talking about writer's block and how so many newbies, even seasoned writers, have writer's block. And so we talked about what writer's block was, and we also gave you tips to get over that writer's block. And so with me to help us let you know that writing is worth the effort is my guest co-host and contributor today, fellow author, pastor, writer, reader, George McVeigh. George, once again, thank you so much for being with us on the show. Before the break, we were going to discuss negative comments. And I think this is highly important because newbie writers in particular have the idea, and we all did, that no one's going to hate my work. No one, because I love my work. My work is my child. I birthed this book from infancy to bookhood. No one's ever going to hate my child. And so when that happens, it can be quite damaging to a newbie. And I know it was to me. But over time, you learn how to get over it. So we wanted to talk about that and how we can turn those negatives into positive to let you know that writing is worth the effort. So go ahead, George. Expand on that, and then I'll share a negative review, you share a negative review, and then we'll share a positive and a positive. So go ahead and expand on that really quickly.
Well, here's the thing. The one thing that we have to remember about reviews is this: they are someone's opinion. Period. Mm-hmm. You know, it's how they felt about your book. That doesn't mean your book is good. That doesn't mean your book is bad. As a matter of fact, I look at it like this. If I get a negative review, I do something that a lot of writing experts tell you not to do. A lot of authors tell you never to comment on a review, but I comment on every review, and I comment the same way. And that way is this: thank you for taking the time to read my book and review it, because they spent their money.
Yeah.
You know, if you go on Amazon and it says verified purchase, even if it's a 1-star review, they paid you. You know?
Yes,
so
exactly.
They may not be happy, and I have one. I mean, I have one on the book that's sold 1 million copies. I have one this is a pamphlet that's written by a self-proclaimed Satanist turned pastor. Very simplistic in nature, poorly written and edited. And I personally feel that some of the author's interpretations are based on his experiences and not filtered through the Word of God, especially his confusing take on the idea of offensive weapons from Isaiah, not recommended. And the very same day that I got that, I got this review, which was a 5-star. I really like his writing style. It was like sitting and chatting with a good friend. I enjoyed learning a bit more about the armor of God. I feel empowered at the simplicity of it. We always try to make more of something than it really is. God does the work. It's his armor. We don't have to get all worked up about attacks. We just have to remind ourselves of the truth. So, you know, in the same day, I got a guy who said, you know, I hate it. It was a waste of my money. And I have a lady who said, you know, I loved it. And the truth is, they're both right.
Exactly.
The guy that hated it. Not a thing I can do to change his mind. But I'm not going to let it affect me. Don't get me wrong. There are times when they do. And my solution to fixing those, to overcoming the feeling of negativity that the enemy will send at us to try and steal our joy about writing and publishing and all of that, is I have a file of these positive reviews. And not only reviews, but letters. I mean, I put my email in the back of every book that I sell and ask people to contact me. And I get emails from people all the time. And people that email you don't email you to tell you how they hated your book. They email you to tell you how much they loved it, how much it impacted you. I will never forget the first one, and the one that made me start this file. And it was from my first Western. And, you know, Christian Westerns they don't sell a lot because people don't know what to make of them. And I wrote it because I wanted to write it. I didn't write it for anyone else, but yet I got this email out of the blue from a young man in a veterans hospital who had just returned from Afghanistan, from the war. And he was literally in the hospital for PTSD, and part of his PTSD was he'd taken some lives over there. And as a Christian, it just really stressed him out. How can I be a Christian and have sent these men to hell? That was literally what was running through his head. Well, that's one of the themes in my first Western is, you know, was that, and his email to me was, I have talked to pastors, I've talked to doctors, I've talked to Christians, no one could give me an answer. And my girlfriend brought me a Western to read because she knew I liked Westerns, and my answer was in this book. Thank you, thank you,
wow.
Thank you. You know, and it just, right there, I don't care if I had never sold another copy, that would be enough to keep me writing.
And that also shows you that writing is definitely worth the effort, especially for Christian writers who, like you and I, we see it as a part of a ministry. We see it as part of a ministry. Of course, we like, getting money. Who doesn't, but we see it as part of the ministry. I'm going to share my one negative. This is a recent one. Actually, when I saw this, I kind of laughed. I was so glad the Lord had brought me from being so hurt by a lot of these things to be like, oh, yay, she read the book. So she says, I am so glad that I got loaned this book because I purchased it, I would have been livid. I hated everything about this book. The main character made me want to throat punch her every time she opened her mouth. Solomon was a grown man who spent his days at a skate park and dreamed of strange women and candy. When reading this, I think I rolled my eyes so much I now have a headache. That's what the woman said in her review. And I was thinking to myself, I guess she doesn't like it, right? So what happened, then I got another, I don't want to read it because it's really long. It's a long review, but they basically enjoyed every single one of every word. They enjoyed every word of the book. And we do have a caller calling in from Kentucky.
Sure.
Kentucky, how are you doing today?
Well, you should know who's calling from Kentucky.
I kind of figured it was you, Samantha.
On the radio, Samantha Fury's going to butt in and say hi.
Oh, how are you doing?
I'd just like to say that I know a good friend of Pastor's and both mine, Diane Adams. She actually has her husband print out the good reviews so she doesn't have to read the bad reviews. So if they bother you a lot, just don't read them.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Great advice this evening. We all get bad reviews. I'd like to thank Pastor as always being our official pastor at CIN. He does a great job of keeping all of us in line. And love that he's always willing to help us. And great show, lots of great information. Everybody should be listening. And that's all I wanted to say. You guys have a good evening.
Thank you, Sam, so much for calling in. Always love when you call in. Thanks so much.
Now I better be good because the boss is listening. So
yeah.
But no, I mean, and she's right. If it bothers you, if the negative reviews bother you that much, then don't look at them. I mean, okay, yep, I got a review. It's negative. I'm just not going to look at it.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, if it says verified, I'll thank them. If it doesn't, I won't, because that means somebody gave them the book, or they may not have even read the book at all.
Yeah.
And that happens. But you know what? It's just the nature of the beast. We put ourselves out there, and it's just like any other artist. I mean, there are people. I have told authors this week alone, it's just like Picasso. When Picasso was alive, nobody liked Picasso's work. Everybody thought it was amateurish. And yet now, you can't buy a Picasso for under $1 million.
Yeah, go figure.
Now everybody wants to be Picasso. Just don't go cut your ear off. But I mean, it's amazing to me how we let somebody else tell us what we are supposed to be doing.
I'm going to read a couple. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, George. I'll read a couple more comments.
Well, what I was going to say is, if God, whether you're a Christian writer or a non-Christian writer, if God put a story in your heart, then all you're responsible for is putting the story out there, not how people respond to it.
We got a couple more comments I want to read from fellow authors. Writing is worth the effort because it allows me to spend my time doing what I love rather than tolerating what I must. I am making my dreams come true, one story at a time. J. Thomas Like, author of The Widow Tales. And then writing is the fastest way to get me to sit down and wonder of the world. That's from Sarah Beth Cole, author of the reality series. And then another one says, some days when the muse isn't flowing the way you want, you open up your email and you get an email from someone who read your book. They get it. They are excited about your words and they want to see more. You smile because you know those hours in front of the computer and missing out on life is so worth it. LaShonda Hoffman, author of Building Online Relationships, One Reader at a Time. And so this is a concept, the writing effort is a concept both fiction and nonfiction writers deal with. Because I actually think, George, and you would know because you've written nonfiction, I haven't written nonfiction as of yet, I almost think nonfiction is harder to do than fiction. I almost think so, because nonfiction, you have to come off knowing what you're talking about, as opposed to
you better
fiction,
know what you're talking about, or you're going to get called on it. And the truth is, even if you do know what you're talking about, you're still going to get called on it, because there's somebody out there who thinks they know more than you, or does know more than you. You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, what are you going to do? It's the same is true if you have a conversation. If you have a conversation at a party that people can overhear, sooner or later somebody's going to say something that you don't agree with.
Exactly. And what's going to happen with that, what happens with that too, is that's the whole thing about writing. It is putting yourself out there. And we have to acknowledge that to our listeners. We have to acknowledge there is some vulnerability. There is vulnerability attached to it, especially if you're a writer, regardless of what you write. There's vulnerability attached to that. Someone's going to read your book and hate it. It's like with the movies. Like, everyone that I knew liked that movie Kill Bill. A lot of people I knew liked Kill Bill. I hated Kill Bill, okay? So when I saw Kill Bill, I didn't want to see how he died. I didn't even care. You know, I didn't want to see Kill Bill 2. But I did not care. I hated the movie. I hated Prometheus. Some people like Prometheus. I hated the movies, okay? And a lot of people like them. It's so subjective that you can't let negative comments stop you from writing.
That's right. Well, you know, I mean, the truth is, you're right. You're putting yourself out there. But if you're not putting yourself out there, then you're not actually doing a good job at writing. You're just not. I mean, I don't know of a writer, famous or not famous, who hasn't admitted that what they put on the page is themselves. You know, it's their dreams, it's their fears, it's their hates, it's their likes. You know, no matter what you're writing, it's what you're an expert in, or think you're an expert in, or what you know will help someone else. But there's you on the page every single solitary time. Even if it's a cookbook, it's you on the page. You know, because you don't put things in your cookbook that you don't like to cook. So
exactly.
You know, if somebody were to hand me, and no offense to them, because I know they're out there, but if somebody were out there and handed me a gluten-free cookbook, I am not going to be thrilled, because I like gluten. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't mess with me physically. So, you know, I want my recipes to have gluten in them. I just do. But I get there are people out there that need a gluten-free cookbook. It's not for me, but it is for someone. You know, the same thing is true of fiction. You know, I've had people who have told me, you know, that have heard of my books and said, well, you know, I just don't like Westerns. Well, there are people out there that are like that. And I can live with that. You know, there are people out there who say, well, I don't like science fiction, or I don't like mystery, or I don't like romance, or I don't. Well, yeah, you're right. But what do you like? Because there's something out there, and that's your audience. And the thing is, even your audience isn't going to like everything you put out. You know, I mean, even the people that, in my fiction books, even the people that love my fictions sometimes hate things that happen in the book. You know, I mean, I had a very positive review, not on my last book, but on the book before that, in which the lady said, you know, this happened and it wasn't what I expected and it wasn't what I wanted. But yet, it is the direction that the story took me to. And was I upset with her? No, she's a very great fan, and I actually wrote her in as a character in the next book, basically because she was honest, and because I knew just because she didn't like what happened to this one character didn't mean she wasn't going to buy the next book. And you know, I mean, it's just the way it is. We have to change the way we think when we're writers. I mean, you know, a lot of us that write do it because we're introverts and we don't want to put our physical selves out there in the public. And yet somehow we get it in our heads that it's okay to put ourselves out there in the public on a page. But the truth is, it's just as overwhelming at times.
You know what, George, you made a comment that I want to kind of jump off with, because you just said something. You said, you know, this fan, she's a faithful fan, and I have faithful fans as well. And you wrote her into this next book. I think those writers who are in the spotlight, like the Stephen Kings, J.K. Rowling, Ted Dekker, all those big, huge writers, I think they have a general idea of their fan base follows them. But I think with some of these unknown writers like ourselves who don't see the big spotlight, we have such a connection with our fans. We really, truly appreciate every connection with our fans. If you can, because with social media now, fans can contact you and say, hey, when's the next book coming out? Or they get on your email list, they buy your books. I remember when I met my first person, the first fan who was my first automatic buy. And what I mean by that, if my name was on the book, she bought it. She didn't care what it was about. She bought it.
Right.
And having that connection with your fans is another reason why writing is worth the effort, because some of us indie authors and even some of the small presses like myself who are published, we can make that connection with our fans in such a more personable way than with like a bigger name who doesn't have time to always answer every fan email. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. I agree with that. And the truth is, here's the thing. In today's global world, and it is a global world, whether we want to admit it or not, but thanks to the internet and social media, you know, we're global. Even some poor little pastor from West Virginia, me, is global. I've gotten emails from Guyana, South America, from Guyana, Africa, from all over the world, you know, from people that have read my books, and that in itself blows me away. But at the same time, unlike, say, you know, Jerry Falwell or Franklin Graham, I can still take the time to respond to each individual email that I get myself. And, you know, I mean, my books on spiritual warfare are the ones that are selling the best. And people can actually ask me questions that they have and know that they're going to get an answer and not an automated, thank you for writing to me, here's a signed copy, blah, blah, blah. You know, they're going to get an answer to the question that they have. I mean, I just last week had a lady who sent me an email that said, I just read your book on prayer walking, and I need to know how to pray for my 3 children who've wandered away from the Lord. Can you help me with that? Well, you know, if she wrote that to a big Christian author,
you know, like Max Lucado,
she wouldn't have got a response. They would have never even seen that email.
Mm-hmm.
It came across, I saw it, I took the day and sat down and prayed about her situation and then wrote her what I thought God was saying. Did my writing make a difference? Was it worth the effort that day? Of course it was, because that lady needed help she couldn't get elsewhere. And when we write, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, Christian, nonfiction, we still have the opportunity to touch people's lives. Even if it's only one person, it's still worth it.
And this goes for, like, our authors out there who, like I said, they don't write Christian fiction. They just write secular fiction. You know, in my genre, I write romance, so I got a lot of different types of romance writers that I connect and know. And I read some of their works, and so I could go, hey, you know, I just love this particular book, or I just love how you wrote this. I just, you know, that connection that authors get with those lesser-known authors, they can't get with the bigger-name authors. They can't get that. And I understand how some people some writers may understand that. That's why I think writing is also worth the effort, because in today's world of publishing, you connect with your fans in a way that's much different than maybe 20 years ago. And then on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about another thing that may inhibit writers, and that's life circumstances. We're going to talk about that on the other side. No, you don't know anything about this, George, but you can.
No, not me,
right?
not at all.
So we're going to go ahead, take a quick short break. You still have time to weigh in on our topic. At the show, Pastor George is going to pray for us. At the end of the show, he's going to pray for us, and this is particularly for writers who want to write, writers who are newbies, writers who are seasoned. He's going to pray for us at the end of the show. So you can want to get your prayer request in, you certainly can. But if you want to call in, you call in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air. Hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, #WriteStuff with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Are you a reader looking for more compelling Christian fiction? Maybe something a little more edgy or a bit more real? Are you tired of most Christian fiction shying away from the truth and settling for a rose-tinted view of the world and its issues? Or are you an author who has a compelling story to tell, but you're afraid it doesn't jive with today's brand of Christian or secular fiction? Are you tired of Christian publishers telling you that your content is too edgy, Or maybe you've tried submitting your content under the radar to secular publishers only to be told your themes are a bit too religious. We invite you to take a look at the Crossover Alliance. We are an online publishing company that specializes in edgy Christian speculative fiction with Christian themes and real-world content. Our company is formed from authors and readers just like you who are breaking into the mainstream and Christian markets with this compelling genre. Head over to the www.thecrossoveralliance.com for all the details on who we are, what we do, and what we accept. Right now, if you sign up for our email newsletter, you'll receive a free digital copy of our first short story anthology. Check us out today and help us spread the word about the Crossover Alliance, where light shines brighter in the darkness.
This broadcast of the PJC Media Network seeks to present wholesome, thought-provoking, and entertaining content. However, the views expressed by the hosts of PJC Media are theirs and theirs alone. They do not reflect the views of this network or its affiliates. Please utilize listener discretion. We're back, and you're hanging out with the Queen of Tuesday Night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff.
And we are back, and you are listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. We are talking about writing is worth. In our discussion, we talked about how writer's block can hinder you and ways to get over that writer's block. And we talked about negative comments can hinder you and to help you get over that. And we also talked about the intimacy lesser-known writers with their fans that well-known writers can't have with their fans. And so we use this as writer's career to let you know that writing truly is worth the effort. Whether you write Christian fiction, Christian literature like myself and George, or whether you write some other fiction, writing is worth the effort. It's still a gift that God gave you. You can still use it. Don't let anything stop you from writing. And that's going to be like the main gist of our show, is that writing is worth the effort. You're worth the effort, and go ahead and keep trying to get that book out there. I want to read a couple of more comments I received from my author friends. Talking to Piper Hughley, she's the author of the Migrations of the Heart series, Home to Milford series, breaking down the word revision, and that's when those who don't know, you have to rewrite your stuff and do the editing. It's all about seeing your work anew. Thus, the revision process is not meant to be painful, but is the way to see your project in a brand new light. And then Jeremy Bullard, author of General, said, everyone has an imagination, a secret world inside their head when it's possible. Writing is nothing more than an engraved invitation, asking someone else to visit your world. Scripture tells us that it's not good for man or woman to be alone. And writing of seeing that you are never really alone. Your readers join you in your world, just as you join other writers in theirs. Friends, ideas, inspirations, and a significant portion of your heart every time you open a book. And then we got a comment from a reader's perspective, Deborah Dunton in Sweetwater, Florida. Deborah says, I am a lover of the written word. It's a joy for me to open a book and be able to fully describe how important writers are. They laugh when they really needed it. Let's say, never give up on the gift God has given you. You never know whose life you are touching. And that's from Deborah. She's a reviewer. You've heard her reviews on The Right Stuff. And so, George, as we continue on our discussion about writing is worth the effort, we definitely want to get into life circumstances. And life circumstances can range from financial to discouragement, anything, life circumstances. And you may think this life circumstance, whatever this is, stop me from writing. What would you say to that?
Well, my first response would be to laugh, because anyone who's saying that to me hasn't followed me on social media, or you would know that in the last 4 years I've had 5 strokes. And after each and every one of them, I've struggled to be able to write again, and yet I'm still doing it. Yes, life circumstances can get in the way. Life can overcome. In the 5 years since I started writing, let's see, I've had those health problems come up. I have a daughter who has had 2 major surgeries and a cancer battle. I've had 2 grandsons born, both special needs. All of these are things that could have gotten in the way and stopped me from writing. And I'll be real honest, they did for a while. But you can't let circumstances keep you away. They can take you away, but you can't let them keep you away. And if you really, truly have the gift of writing, something within you will pull you back to the page. So what do I say to people who say, I just can't do it right now? You're probably right. You can't. And it's okay. Simply put, 3 days after my stroke, I couldn't write. I couldn't coherently put words on the pages. And as you can tell, when I get tired, I still have a little trouble putting sentences together the right way. But it didn't stop me. As a matter of fact, when the people who were helping me with my recovery, who were helping me with my therapy, learned that I was a writer, one of the things they included was writing. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, those first couple of assignments they gave me were not something I would ever publish anywhere. But they started allowing me to see that I could eventually get back to this. And, yeah, there was a time when everything was going wrong that I just had to say, and Parker, I think you were even part of our group when this happened, and I said, I'm going to take a little break for a while. I have to, for me.
Yeah.
But then the day came, and I was...
You're healing. You don't want to throw that healing.
Yeah,
you still
exactly.
got to have to heal.
I had to, and whether it's an emotional healing that you need, or a physical healing, or recovery, I mean, let's be honest. If you're sick, you're not going to feel like writing, period. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's the cold or the flu. If there's something that's physically affecting you or emotionally affecting you, yeah, sometimes you're just like, I can't do this right now. I can't concentrate on this right now. And, being a spiritual person, my thought is that's God telling you now's the time to take a little break. Mm-hmm. However, if you let that little break become a forever break, that's the enemy of your soul, telling you it wasn't worth it. But we all know it is worth it. There's a part of us, there was a part of me that before I got back to writing knew it was time to get back to writing. Yeah, I drug my feet another week. I'm not going to lie. Mm-hmm. But finally, it got to the point where I was waking up in the middle of the night with story ideas, and what are you going to do? It's either you're not going to rest because the story ideas won't let you, or you're going to put them on the page. Yeah, and get them out. And when that time comes, and it will, if you're in the middle of a recovery period, there will come a time when your body and your spirit will tell you, now. That's when you step back into it. And you'll do it with a renewed passion that you would be amazed.
We're getting close to the end of our show, and I'm always surprised how fast it goes, George, when we're on air, because we always have such a good time. I'm going to read a couple more comments we received. We got a comment from Joey Pinkney. He is a Twitter campaign marketing for authors, and you heard his ad earlier. Joey says, you can reach me without being here. You can teach me without knowing what I need to learn. You can expose me to a brand new world which required me to leave where I sit. Joey, thank you so much for that comment. You talked about why writing is worth the effort from a reader's point of view. And then we got a comment from David. David says, writers write. If you are a writer, you don't write for reviews. You don't write for the audience. You don't even necessarily write to please yourself. You write because you can't not write. If you can't quit writing and do anything else, you should. It is a hard road with little reward for the majority of writers. But if you can't quit, then you are a writer, and you should be encouraged that you are doing what God has called and equipped you to do. Don't take it for granted. Always strive for self-improvement. Learn all you can. Grow as much as you can. Make every effort better than last. Don't ever give up. If you know this is what you are wired to do, then do it with no regrets and no looking back. David, thank you so much for that comment. George, David makes a really good point about something. He says wired, and that means that each of us have gifts. There could be gifts in many different areas. And if we are writers, like for me, I knew from a very early age I was going to be a writer.
even before I knew I was going to be a writer, I knew books would always have a place in my heart, in my body. There is no early memory of me never having, not having a book in my hand, not wanting to write, telling stories to my siblings and my cousins. There was never a moment that I didn't have writing in my blood. And some people don't have that because their gifts are more subtle and they have to go through things to find those gifts. And so he says about being wired, and as we're talking about writing is worth the effort, can you speak to this concept that if we're wired to write, we should write?
Oh, definitely. I think he actually hit it on the head, and I kind of chuckled under my breath. I don't know if you heard me or not, but he actually said something that was said to me the day before I was ordained as a pastor. And what I was told was, if you can do anything but be a pastor, then go do it. And you know, he said that about writing. If you can do anything but write, then then you shouldn't write. And he's right. There is something in each of us that puts word to the page, whether it's ever published or not. And in today's world, there's no reason for it not to be, because you can publish it yourself. But if you have that desire within you, it's a desire that was created in you. Period. And to not use it is to do yourself a disservice, and maybe the world.
Exactly.
Because who knows? You know, I mean, for all we know, one of the people listening could be the next Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
You know, could be the next Ted Decker, could be the next Harlequin romance novel winner. You know, who could be the next pick your favorite author.
Right, exactly. And that
the
gift
truth
in
is,
them.
if you never put your words out there, then not only are you doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing those who might find them and find relief from their everyday life out of them.
I think,
because let's be honest,
mm-hmm.
that's what fiction writing is. It's giving people a chance to live another life.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I remember when my grandfather passed away earlier this year, I ended up reading a very good book by an author friend of mine. It was my first time reading some of his work, and it was very well written, and it was able to help me alleviate from my grandfather's death, because I was very confused about his death because a lot of different things that happened, and to be able to escape was one of the best things about reading his book. And so perhaps my emotional state book, it could have, some people didn't like his book, but I thought, how could you not like his book? It was great, That's kind of like what I'm thinking, and it really catapulted me away from my problems. And so it's because writing truly is worth the effort. Don't let your writer's block stop you. Find ways to get around it. Don't let negative comments stop you. Find ways to get around it. Know that when you write and get that book out there, you begin to grow an intimacy with your fans that want to be with you. That intimacy cannot be matched by the bigger-known authors unless you meet them at a book signing. And even then, they can only give you a couple of minutes of their time with you. And then don't let life circumstances stop you. Life circumstances can take you away from your writing for a time, but they can't keep you away, as George said in our discussion about this whole thing about writing is worth the effort. And then we are wired to write. If you're wired to write, you can't do anything but write. You may help someone in your writing, fiction or fiction. You may help someone. Can you imagine that someone sends you an email one day? If you're not writing, someone sends you that email. Someone says, you know what? This book made my day. This book really helped me understand something. I was healed from an emotional scar. I was healed from some physical pain. I was healed from this. I was helped through that. I laughed so hard. I haven't laughed in such a long time. Oh, you scared me and gave me a delicious chill. Those are comments that you want to read, all because you were obedient first to the wiring, to the gift that God gave you. And it lets you know this, your writing is truly worth the effort. And I said this before in earlier show that Pastor George is going to pray for us, because we know Pastor George, especially among our circle, so many writers are dealing with a lot of things. Because being a writer, you're still a person. You still have to write. You may have to raise the children, take the kids to school, cook, take care of a loved one that's ailing, like stuff like that. You still have to write. We did get another caller calling in. And Carl, we're going to take your call in just a moment, but I just want to let you know, Carl, that we will be ending the show very soon. But I'm going to get your call. We got a caller calling in from, not sure where they're calling in from. So, caller, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. This is Fran Briggs from Arizona.
Oh, hi, Fran. How you doing? I'm sorry. I was trying to show. Thanks for being with us. Did you have a question or comment for our guest?
I'm in listening mode. Go ahead and continue, if you will.
Okay. No problem.
Conference South. So please continue.
Oh, no problem. And so we were talking, George, about how right is truly worth the effort. And so we kind of went through the summary of our talk. So what are your final thoughts before you do your prayer? What are some of your final thoughts about this whole topic?
Well, my final thoughts actually come from a movie, and that is never give up, never surrender. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth of it. It's very much worth it, but it's not worth it if we give up. It's only worth it if we complete the process. So don't give up. When you get down, look for those things that are going to lift your spirit and your creativity, and go at it with fresh new eyes.
And Pastor George, like I said, I know we're going to do a quick prayer real quick for writers and the writers who want to write. I want you to do a prayer for them, for their circumstances, their finances, their health, their writing careers, their aspirations, no matter what they are. Go ahead and let's pray for our writers today.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Father God, we just thank you, first off, for Parker and her show and the chance that we get to speak into the lives of those that are trying to live up to the gift that you put in them. God, I just pray right now for every writer that's listening, for every writer that will listen later, that you just spark within them a fresh, new desire to put words on the page. Lord, that they would give their best gifts to you through their readers, Lord, and that you would help overcome anything that's standing in their way, that's stopping them, whether it be their finances, whether it be comments, whether it be what other people think of and what they think of themselves. Lord, we just pray that you speak into their lives and stir within them the need to put words on the page. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pastor George, thank you so much for being with us on the show today, for that wonderful prayer, just letting our listeners know that writing truly is worth the effort. And like we said, whether you write Christian literature or whether you don't, if you have the gift that God gave you to write, go ahead and write it. Use that gift. Change someone's life, change someone's mindset, change someone's day. Go ahead and use that gift. And George, thank you so much for being with us on the show and letting us know that writing truly is worth the effort. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thanks for letting me be there.
And we're talking today to Pastor George McVeigh. He is a fellow author and a writer. He writes a lot of Westerns because he likes Westerns. And if you want to follow him online, you can follow him on Twitter at McVeighGeorge. Again, he has different books online for you. His number one best-selling book is a nonfiction book about spiritual warfare that sold over 1 million copies. And he also has fictional books called The Redemption Tales. You can get that today on Amazon.com. Again, just look up George McVeigh on Amazon and you'll find him and his books Redemption Tales and also his book about spiritual warfare. Follow him on Twitter at McVeighGeorge. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of The Right Stuff. Thank you so much for your support of my career. You can find out anything you want to know about me on my website, parkerjcole.com. And don't forget, everyone, if you have the gift to write, write. Don't let anything stop you. Writing is truly worth the effort. So go ahead, write your book today. I am the Queen of Tuesday Nights, Parker J. You have a wonderful, wonderful, blessed day.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of The Right Stuff. Follow Parker online at parkerjcole.com. To hear this show and other shows, visit the show archive at therightstuffradio.wordpress.com. We'll be back same time next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.